All right, peace and blessings, everybody. Saturday, March the 10th, the year 2018. David Hinkson has been sending an incredible amount of core links emails through the prison system. He is just a library of information. We've uploaded this one to Year of Jubilee, the Hinkson page. And so if you want to go download it and read it yourself, feel free to do that. If not, I'm going to read it into YouTube right now. Cancer by David Hinkson. During the early 40s, Dr. Royal Raymond Rife worked with Nikola Tesla to actually create and define a new type of electromagnetic wave that was actually formed into a very sharp razor spikes. In fact, they defined these wave concepts into three main categories, as square, normal, and spiked sine waves. Note that in the 90s, there was a man who worked to cure his own cancer using radio frequencies, and he never even noticed that this work had already been invented by Mr. Rife. In the end, he failed and died of cancer, never realizing that he was using a wrong wave formation. It is my opinion that the propagated wave formation must have a sharp spike, or it will not be able to do the job of killing these many different kinds of pathogens. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, as sometimes we just need to remember what has already been invented in the past as we move forward. So in the past, I purchased a signal generator that even had the frequency on the LED screen. Then I went to Radio Shack and purchased some chokes, capacitors, and using my oscilloscope, actually got the output signal to be all spiked. I then hooked up the two wires to two stainless steel plates and placed 1 foot on each of them, and I used frequencies throughout my entire body. Then Mr. Rife invented the universal prismatic microscope that used mirrors and sunlight in each, and used sunlight in such a way as to not destroy or kill what was being actually studied. This new dark screen microscope was and is still the most powerful microscope that has ever been built, as it amplified his view up to 60,000 times. This allowed him to actually view the live viruses in a totally controlled environment. He then went through each of the over 1,000 different frequencies and categorized that every virus, bacterium, parasites, and all other pathogens were particularly sensitive to their own specific and defined electrical magnetic frequency, and thus can be destroyed by intensifying that frequency until it literally exploded them and shattered them like an intense musical note can shatter a wine glass. In order to shatter these microorganisms, Rife invented the frequency beam ray machine. He learned that any species of life has its own electromagnetic signature, a pattern of its oscillations based on its individual genetic chemical blueprint. It's different for all life forms. This instrument is based on Dr. Rife's quest to study the unique electromagnetic signature of viruses, bacteria, parasites, fungi, and cancer, and the experimentation using frequencies to destroy them. A report from the Smithsonian Institute in 1944 validates Rife's work. It is titled The New Microscope by Dr. R.E. Seidel, Report 3781, and states that under the universal microscope, disease organisms such as those of cancer and other diseases may be observed to succumb when exposed to certain lethal frequencies. The universal microscope was used to actually watch the viruses, as the frequency generator actually killed certain cells that were infected with viruses and were thus cancerous. Although he achieved remarkable success with frequencies, Dr. Rife also did many studies in attempting to grow cancer from scratch. There was one surefire method that caused a tumor to start to grow every time, as he could inject a virus into a cell on a rat and then send a bit of X-ray radiation into the cell, and the virus would immediately cause cell mutation, and the cell would start breathing nitrogen, and thus a tumor would start to grow. It is my opinion that all cancers are in fact just one of your aerobic cells that used to breathe oxygen and now has been converted into breathing nitrogen, and now it is called a cancer. This, in my opinion, is the real definition of what all cancer are and should be addressed as. All oxygen-breathing cells can be converted into being nitrogen-breathing organisms easier if they are first poisoned with some kind of industrial chemical. However, silver and copper both kill viruses, and proper zinc levels can actually stop replication of the viruses, and it is this zinc concept that can also eventually remove all viruses, as they will start to die off of old age after 10 days. Note that normally all viruses can no longer sexually replicate after 10 days. Therefore, it has been proven that if you have proper zinc and copper levels, you might have no viruses in your system. Is it any wonder studies have shown that high zinc levels in men can reduce colon cancer? But the question now becomes, what is the correct level of these minerals? Note that taking the recommended RDA levels, in my opinion, do not necessarily provide any real protection against cancer. There are a lot of different concepts that can be used to kill cancer cells. Sometimes it has been shown to be a good idea to use more than one concept, especially if the concepts being used are non-toxic, and if a type of treatment is actually toxic, you would need to assess just how toxic it is on the liver and maybe consume some alpha-lopic acid to help mitigate any damage that might be done to the liver. One of the most serious poisons is dioxin. Dioxins are created when you bleach and then burn bleached substances. For instance, plastic is made by chlorinating oil or petroleum products. Burning plastic generates dioxins. Freon is actually made by chlorinating propane. Also, burning freon produces dioxins. I believe that when you smoke and burn the actually white bleached cigarette paper, you are releasing dioxins into your system from the burning white bleached cigarette paper, and this is much worse than breathing the burning out tobacco. Maybe this is why smoking cigars has been shown to not cause cancer as often. The human diet is threatened by ingestion too much acidic foods. Consumption of lemon juice actually creates a more alkalinity, not acidity. The overall pH equals parts hydrogen, of the body is supposed to be alkaline at 7.2. Blood can carry many different types of gases and not just oxygen and or nitrogen. Water and or blood can only carry so much of these gases. So if you increase the hydrogen acid levels, the oxygen levels can drop or fall. If you, for example, pour vinegar into a fish tank, the fish will all die of asphyxiation or lack of oxygen, as the water can no longer hold any or carry any oxygen molecules. Your overall body system is supposed to be at 7.2. Any poison that is ingested into the body when the pH of the body has been lowered is many times more toxic, and this can also help a cancer cell get started. Farmers use HCl, hydrochloric acid, when spraying insecticides to increase the overall killing power of the applied poison. Lowering the pH also increases the cleaning power of soaps. So in summary, every poison is much more toxic to your body as you lower the pH of your overall body system. Also, nitrogen-breathing anaerobic pathogens and even plants like trees or grass cannot live any environment that is above 6.7 alkaline on the pH scale. So as long as the overall pH of the human body is at 7.2, cancer cannot get started growing. As the body's overall pH is lowered and becomes more and more acidic, your chances of getting cancer or tumors are increased overall. One should avoid food products that contain acid preservatives, such as sodas that have citric acid or even phosphoric acid in them, as both can lower the body's overall pH levels. Note that citric acid is not vitamin C, as vitamin C is known as ascorbic acid. You will find that these two different acids, known as citric acid and ascorbic acid, are two different distinct types of acids, as citric acid is not only usable by the body system, but it has many negative side effects, including acid reflux disease, weight gain, and increasing overall toxicity, as all known poisons will become more toxic to the entire body system. In fact, citric acid is a preservative manufactured by Monsanto that lowers the overall pH of the entire body system. Consuming citric acid will lower your overall pH, and this can help to get cancer started. Cancer breathes nitrogen. But overall, no matter how much bad nitrogen you have extra in your system, it does not affect the pH of your blood, as the human body will always keep the pH of the blood in balance at 7.4. But everywhere else in the human body that becomes too acidic can now develop a shortage of oxygen, as the hydrogen will actually replace the oxygen levels. This can further help tumors get started. One of the most affected areas of being too acidic is the lymph system. If this system is too acidic, tumors can start there. Any cell that is damaged or poisoned will attempt to repair itself, but once a cell converts into or becomes an anaerobic breathing cancer cell, it is your enemy. Also, the elemental correct form of calcium can be used to flush these hydrogen waste products, also known as the acidic crystalline neurotoxin, from your cells and lymph system. When your usable calcium blood serum levels become depleted as they attempt to remove the acidic waste products, the toxins now are left in the cells and thus weaken the defense of the cell. As you can see, a lot of the concepts are overlapping. Some people say if you want to get rid of your cancer, just raise the pH of the overall body system. But I found that once a cancer tumor gets started growing, like all living things, it will attempt to protect and defend itself. So just raising your pH is a good thing to do and can maybe prevent cancer from ever getting started, but it is not the cure at the later stages of this disease. Alpha-lopic acid was discovered by the Czech Republic during the 70s. They discovered that they could get a person who had cirrhosis of the liver to generate a whole new liver, 30 days. I can remember a story about an intern who was working in a death clinic in Arizona, clinic where people 100% die, mushroom poisoning. He had heard about the alpha-lopic acid and had his pilot friend pick up some in the Czech Republic. When the alpha-lopic acid was given to his patients in this death clinic, he ended up saving all of these terminal patients. This whole concept is very interesting, as a lot of different cancer treatments that are very effective can be toxic to the liver. Of course, it really matters how toxic it is and how much of it needs to be taken. For example, it only takes about 10 milligrams a day of hydrazine sulfate to abate most cancers. See the Kathy Keaton story. Therefore, yes, the hydrazine sulfate is toxic and comes with a skull and crossbones on the label. But 10 milligrams is not a very large dosage, and this is an overall small amount. I also like the idea of sometimes taking two substances that are just a little bit toxic instead of taking more on a single substance. For example, if you were to take 10 milligrams of Indian sulfate along with 10 milligrams of hydrazine sulfate, that would be a great slightly toxic combination. Then there are some products that can be used to abate cancers that are really not toxic at all, and it still might be a good idea to consume some alpha-lopic acid to help the body heal and to help destroy cancer cells, as the liver is needed to help the overall process anyway. Now, the current method for medically trying to deal with cancer is that they use extreme chemo, poison, or even radiation to attempt to kill that cancer. And they hope that they kill the cancer before the poison kills you. I really don't like this method and disagree with how they are doing these treatments. I think that we need to have our treatments become more targeted and only target the cancer. But the problem overall is that the cancer cells will try to defend themselves against some of the treatments that are targeted to kill it. Note that any element that is alkaline on the scale above 7 and kept under 10.5 can be shown to actually kill cancer cells. But the cancer cells will protect themselves by excluding the material from entering into the cancer cell. For example, in the past, I had the idea of ozonating a sugar solution, and this concept made the glucose toxic for the cancer, and yet the cancer could not help itself as it would consume glucose that had ozone attached to it. So I used to add honey or even maple syrup to this mix with the glucose along with some baking soda to provide the alkalinity. Then ozonate the whole mix, and this overall mix was not toxic at any level. This could be a good starting point in the treatment of some cancer conditions. Sodium bicarbonate. Another way to raise the body's pH very fast is to use sodium bicarbonate as a treatment, baking soda. Every cancer patient and every healthcare practitioner should know that oral intake of sodium bicarbonate offers an instant and very strong shift of pH into the alkaline. This tells us to take very seriously the oral use of bicarbonate for cancer treatment. The International Medical Veritas Association has published an article on the use of bicarbonate and maple syrup. See Director, International Medical Veritas Association at www.winningcancer.com. Honey and maple syrup both are absorbed by the body directly into the bloodstream. When bicarbonate is added to maple syrup, the cancer cells gobble up the glucose, receiving a dose of alkalinity, and the cancer cells will die. Use 100% pure maple syrup or honey. Mix 1 part baking soda with 3 parts maple syrup in a small saucepan while stirring and gently heating the mixture for 5 minutes. Take at least 1 tablespoon of this mixture daily, or take 1 tablespoon up to 3 times a day. I believe there are 3 levels of treatment for cancer. First, we have the natural herbal method. Second is the it's just a little bit of poison method. Third is the mainstream doctor burn, poison, and cut it out method. That tries to kill the cancer before you die. Then the doctors also use radiation treatment when it is probably radiation that converted or transmuted your cells into being cancer in the first place. Laetrile is arsenic. 20 years ago, a doctor came up with the Laetrile concept. Laetrile comes out of a peach, an apple, and apricot seeds. Small amounts of it will not hurt you, and it is also listed as a vitamin B17. My research has shown that B17 is excellent as a cancer preventative, but once a tumor starts growing and starts protecting itself, I discovered that Laetrile is not as effective. But if a person would mix the Laetrile with glucose and maybe even ozonate it, you could have great results. Steve McQueen went to Mexico when he was diagnosed with cancer to get Laetrile treatments, and he still died. The media lied. He did not die of cancer, as the Laetrile treatments did actually work. He died like Kathy Keaton, as he went in for cosmetic surgery on polyps, and he was put under so deeply he never woke up. I have recommended that people order bags of apricot seeds and take 4 per day to ensure against the start of tumor growth. Also, if you are going to start any cancer treatment, it is good to take 10 apricot seeds a day. In my opinion, apricot arsenic in small doses can help stop cells from beginning the mutation process in the first place. So it is a good maintenance program. There are some herbal formulas that do a good job killing cancer if you have more actual time. Blood root. One product that was made by an Indian woman who lived in the Oklahoma reservation was called Black X, but she was arrested for selling it. I later learned that one of the main ingredients in this product was bloodroot and zinc chloride. There is a similar product offered by a company in Winnemucca, Nevada called Canex, C-A-N-E-X. Although they make no claims, the main ingredient is bloodroot. The product comes as pills or salve. The product, in my opinion, really works. I put some salve on a skin cancer and put a Band-Aid over it. I went to sleep and forgot about it. There was no pain or itching involved. Then 24 hours later in the shower, I pulled off the Band-Aid and half an inch of tumor fell out of my left arm, and now I had a half-inch deep hole in my arm. At this time, I kept a Band-Aid over the hole that had a drop of tea tree oil on it. It took 3 months for the hole to totally close up, and I noticed there was a white ring of skin around the outside edge of the hole. This white ring kept moving inward until the entire hole was finally gone. Canex, C-A-N-E-X, also seems to remove most of the pain associated with cancers. Shark cartilage. Some people were consuming shark cartilage pills to fight tumors, as they said that sharks don't get cancer. I discovered that cartilage, especially from sharks, is very high in sulfur. This concept seemed to help just a little. Possible sharks to not get cancer because they live and swim in salt water, as cancer does not like salt. Note that salt has chlorine in it, and this is why salt is known to kill most viruses and funguses. Salt is also known as a drying agent, as it tends to dry out the nitrogen-breathing pathogens, and that is why it was used as a food preservative for thousands of years. Skin cancer pre-treatment. If you have skin cancer, you can start by filling or lightly sanding the surface of the tumor with sandpaper or a fingernail file, or you could scrape the surface just a little bit, or even rub salt water on or ozonated lemon juice with glucose into the exposed cancer, and the cancer will not be happy. Ozonating lemon juice. Salt was not as effective as using ozonated lemon juice. I ozonated lemon juice for 24 hours, put in a pinch of sugar in it to bake the tumor, and rub the ozonated mixture on my face 3 times a day. Skin cancer died fast, and facial skin wrinkles and other skin problems disappeared like magic. But I used to keep this lemon juice in the refrigerator between treatments. The ozonated olive oil test failed, as the skin cancer grow faster when applied. So I do not recommend ozonated olive oil for treating skin cancers. Mild poisons for cancer treatment. Some of these mild treatments will make any cancer sorry it ever bothered you. But when I say mild poison, I'm referring to any product that can affect or poison your liver even slightly at any level. So remember that you can and should always take alpha-lipoic acid to offset any negative effects of consuming any product that is listed as poison, especially if it is toxic to the liver. Dr. Gold was interviewed in New York by Kathy Keaton. See hydrazinesulfate.org. Kathy was a reporter for Penthouse magazine and the wife of the owner, Bob Glucioni. She wrote an article about Dr. Gold's new cancer treatment that appeared in a 1999 copy of the Penthouse magazine titled $100 Billion Cancer Scam. At this time, she even helped arrange a class action lawsuit against the American Cancer Society. The article was well written and very informative, and that is why Dr. Gold ended up fleeing the United States and is now practicing medicine in St. Petersburg, Russia. Her written article claimed that Dr. Gold's new treatment was successful at removing even the worst cancers. A few months after Kathy wrote a second article about cancer, and then Kathy herself was diagnosed with galloping breast cancer. I guess it was called galloping because it was spreading very fast, and they told her that she had less than 2 months to live. Her regular mainstream doctor wanted her to start immediately taking the standard chemo treatment. Kathy ignored her doctors and flew back to New York and was treated by Dr. Gold. He gave her 90 ml per day orally. Again, this hydrazine sulfate is listed as a poison when you buy it, but the dose taken was small enough to be only a minor problem. It can be bought from any chemical supply house. Kathy followed Dr. Gold's advice and 6 weeks later lost her incurable cancer, testing clear of all cancer. Instead of dying, in 6 weeks she got 100% better. Note here, the hydrazine sulfate is an acidic sulfur compound. It is sulfur bound automatically with hydrogen. Now, if I was to try this method again, I would mix it with some kind of glucose and maybe ozonate it. Then a few months later, Kathy Keaton went to the hospital for elective surgery. That had nothing to do with cancer, and she died on the operating table because, as they admitted, the anesthesiologist gave her too much anesthesia. I do not know if her death was truly an accident, but I do know that she had been cured by this remarkable sulfur treatment. Indium sulfate. I also heard about a mineral supplement product that was being sold called indium. They were claiming that this indium would cure everything known to man. Although sounding way out, they also were claiming that indium was the element that would allow a man to live to be 900 years old, and that it had been removed from the plants after the Great Flood. These many claims piqued my curiosity, so I played with this new mineral, number 49 on the periodic table. I bought some of their indium product, but it made me extremely upset, angry, and anxious, and it further caused me not to be able to sleep for 3 days. I later learned that anytime you take a product that poisons the liver, you can become very irritable, not able to sleep, and be depressed. I have since met other people who took some of this indium sulfate, and they reported similar relations. Indium sulfate is actually a mild liver poison. When I woke up 4 mornings later, the last of my tumors, the one on my thumb, was loose and sore and had a red ring around it. I grabbed it and pulled it out of my thumb, and a 3-inch root came out of it. I later learned that this type of cancer is called a cancer wart. These are horrible, as they just eat you up and the roots can travel a large distance. After doing a little more research, I discovered that the indium sulfate that I had consumed was not a product like I made at Waterize. As I was processing my raw hallmarked minerals, instead it was indium sulfate. So pay attention to the actual type of element that you are consuming, as the compound that you think is an element might not necessarily be the same. For example, just because you drink water does not mean you are drinking a glass of hydrogen gas, and just because there is hydrogen gas in water does not mean that you can breathe water as you might drown. And note that just because you are consuming calcium carbonate as calcium supplement does not mean that you are consuming any usable calcium. The medical profession leaves most of us in a state of total confusion with disinformation. However, Dr. Gold was using hydrazine sulfate to abate cancer, and I used indium sulfate. Note that both of these two compounds are sulfur-based, and both of them are listed as being a poison. So I was the first person who discovered that indium sulfate, like hydrazine sulfate, will remove and kill tumors. So in the future, I would have people use the hydrazine sulfate and the indium sulfate together in small dosages to mitigate their cancers. My tests in the field have now shown that indium sulfate appears to do as good a job at killing cancers as the hydrazine sulfate, but with one main difference. Indium is more accepted by the glands, and therefore I think it can kill cancer even better in the glands than hydrazine sulfate. In my final work in testing, I found that it took less overall indium sulfate to do the same job at killing tumors. You can order either of these products directly from any chemical supply house cheaply. Spectrum Chemical is a good source. You can also order a small 10 milligram spoon, a 1/8 inch in size. Kathy Keaton was taking an equivalent of 3 of these spoonfuls daily to totally kill her cancer in 6 weeks. I believe from my experience in the field overseas and on experimenting on myself that you can take a lot less of the poisons if you supplement your treatment with the bloodroot and apricot seeds. The bloodroot product is only taken in 10 milligram a day. Just a little bit goes a long way. Or you can take the Canex, C-A-N-E-X, with the apricot seeds. Note that the cheapest place to buy bloodroot by the pound is on the Church of Wicca website. Upon reflection, I would start out with 10 apricot seeds, 3 10 milligram scoops of indium sulfate, and 2 Canex pills. If all you have is indium sulfate and apricot seeds, I would still start out with 3 10 milligram scoops of indium sulfate, hydrazine sulfate. After the first week, you should see a major death rate of the tumors. It is better to kill them slowly as long as they are dying, and if more is needed, you can always raise the daily dosages slightly. All the cancer should be dead in 6 weeks. It is very effective, so you need to be careful and start with less, especially when treating brain tumors. If you kill a brain tumor too fast, the dead mass of the cancer cells can be an overtax on the brain. This is why it is important to move slower with brain tumors. Note that if you were to kill the cancer in the brain too fast, you might experience a condition known as Herxheimer's reaction. This means that the decomposing cancer matter is making you even sicker, and this could actually lead to death. But remember, if you take the correct type of calcium, the calcium can now absorb these crystalline neurotoxins. Leukemia. Leukemia is easier to deal with if you use a mineral that has the ability to travel everywhere through the entire body system where there is moisture. So here we note that it is the calcium, copper, and zinc mineral products that have the ability to travel everywhere through the entire body system and in fact go anywhere where there is moisture, and this includes the blood-brain barrier, spinal fluid barrier, and even the lymph system. Note that there is a lymph system fluids are provided into the eyes, sweat, and even the fluids that are secreted into the lung system known as phlegm. So it might be advisable to use either calcium, copper, and or zinc mixed with ozonated glucose or some of the other things that we have talked about in this written article. The important thing to note here is that anything that is mixed with the liquid calcium, zinc, and or even the copper will be able to cross all of those different barriers. Copper not only can cross the blood-brain barrier, but when a man consumed non-toxic copper water, he lost his lymphoma cancer. He had consumed about 8 ounces a day for 30 days and then got retested and got the negative results for lymphoma. There was a book and video offered by a Miss Day called Caner, C-A-N-E-R, Caner Does Not Scare Me Anymore. I liked her book. She was able to remove her tumors, but on her video she had listed items to avoid eating to an extent that I would not find anything that I wanted to eat. The main thing in my opinion is that we should eat foods that are as unprocessed as possible. Also, consuming water-Oz indium keeps the pituitary gland in balance, and this alone could help to mitigate a tumor. But it is the poison aspect of the indium sulfate that really kills the nitrogen-breathing anaerobic pathogens and virus. It is my opinion that turmeric is found in mustard. It is non-toxic, and it is used by the Indians in India to make their curry chicken recipe. This spice, called turmeric, 100% has been shown to stop cancer from growing, and it can actually kill most all tumors. You can buy this in the grocery store and consume a tablespoon every hour all day long with no negative side effects. Note that cancer levels in India are very low as they overall consume a lot of this spice. Taking a tablespoon of turmeric once a day is also very good, as it can get rid of excess insulin, as it seems to also balance and control the pancreas's ability to control insulin levels. I know, for example, that when I became hypoglycemic and take a spoonful of turmeric, my insulin levels immediately drop to normal, and I can then go back to sleep. Therefore, overall, this is a great product to help you put overall insulin back into balance, and this alone can help you sleep better and get to sleep sooner. I really like taking this product as a supplement, as it makes me feel great. Note that the element known as copper is also used by cancer cells to build no veins. Let me read that again. Note that the element known as copper is also used by cancer cells to build no veins. I don't know what that means. This is why one person stopped consuming the copper. I think that is stupid concept, as copper also is known to kill all viruses and parasites, and I think that most cancers are in fact caused by viruses entering the cell, and I would even call a cancer a parasite. So maybe copper is used to strengthen your arterial system and collagen in the skin, but I know that cancer really hates the copper. And after thinking about this subject, I really think that consuming a non-toxic copper product is just the right thing to do, as I know that cancer cells, viruses, and parasites are all mitigated and can be killed by copper. So in summary, here it might be smart to mix some of the other concepts with the copper, especially if the cancer has no choice but to try to use the copper to build the blood vessels. Hyperbaric chamber. As is used to treat skin divers that get diseases called the bends. Bends is when a diver comes up faster than the air bubbles. Can be used to kill all cancers in 2 hours by increasing the oxygen levels in the chamber and your system while you are sitting in it. What you do is increase the pressure in the chamber to 3 atmospheres, 90 pounds per square inch. You will find that the blood can no longer carry any nitrogen gas, while at the same time you are increasing the oxygen levels to maximum during this duration. Now, as all virus and cancers breathe only nitrogen, they will start to die as they cannot breathe. When you are pressurized in a hyperbaric chamber, all nitrogen can be replaced with oxygen and you might feel a little bit high. But here is the point. Can you imagine that Steve Jobs, with all his money, could have taken a vacation in a location where they are skin diving and cured his cancer in 2 hours? What good is having all of that money if you don't know how to just stay alive? I myself would really like to own my own hyperbaric chamber. I know that Michael Jackson owned one. I also heard that Magic Johnson has one. Maybe this is how he removed the AIDS from his system. Here, note that a hyperbaric chamber can be used to remove any and all nitrogen-breathing pathogens. I think that a person could buy as a used one for the price of a car. Maybe more of them should be available. Dave. All right, this is Cancer by David Hinkson. It will be available on Year of Jubilee. Jubilee spelled with 1 E like the King James Bible. Just go to the David Hinkson page and look for his cancer article. Thank you for your time.